Rookie drafts in Dynasty are extremely crucial regardless of you being the best team in your league or the worst rebuilding team in your league. This is your only chance to add league winners to your squad outside of trades. So it's necessary to identify those league winners and execute your drafts to set your teams up for success. I'm going to tell you exactly who I think those cornerstone pieces can be for your teams at every single pick in this year's Dynasty rookie drafts. We'll be approaching this draft as a 12-team PPR league that is not Superflex. So for my Superflex people, don't click off this video because this is a historically weak quarterback class where I only see two QBs tops going in the first round of those Superflex drafts. So just stick around and see where the rest of these guys fall on my board. But with all that being said, we're going to jump right in here. So when we're talking about league winners, we've kind of known who the ultimate league winner is going to be for this year's rookie draft since December or even November, and that's Ashton Genty. This guy's coming into a Raiders squad where he's the clear-cut RB1 and a team that's honestly lacking offensive weapons. I think the offense is going to run through him this year and maybe for years to come. This guy's got the potential to obviously be a top 5 to top 10 running back for years to come. And if you play Dynasty or been playing for a while, you just know that getting one of those RB1 kind of guys who can be dependable for years is really hard to do. And when you have Ashton Genty at 1, man, that's the ultimate league winner. And I'm going to note real quick, I dropped a video last week where I went in depth on all the first round picks and where I think guys will go in the first round. So I'm going to have that pinned up right here somewhere. I'm not going to spend as much time in this video going through the first round picks and telling you like my analysis of why they should go, where they're going. We're just going to look at league winners. I'm going to tell you what, like I'm going to say who's the highest upside guy at each pick. And then once we get to the second and third rounds, I'm going to get more in depth because that's where the hidden gems are and it's less chalk. So then we go to pick 2 here. And I think for pick 2, you got to go with a guy like Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was obviously the Heisman Trophy winner last year. We know what he can do on the football field. The Jags gave up a good amount to trade up and get him. That means they're going to utilize him. I know BTJ is on the opposite side of him, but this offense under Liam Cohen now can definitely sustain 2 wide receiver ones in fantasy. Travis Hunter's talent is not going to be overshadowed by BTJ's talent. Like I said, in Liam Cohen's offense in Tampa, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin prior to injury were both wide receiver ones in fantasy, and I fully expect that to continue in Jacksonville. Next, we go to pick 3. So pick 3, again, back to the Genty talk, it's hard to get those dependable running backs in Dynasty, and I think the guy who has the second most likelihood of being that dependable guy is Amarian Hampton. Amarian Hampton was a baller at UNC, and the Chargers got him here. So obviously Najee Harris is their RB1 going into this year. But we like if you look at running backs in the past who were taken high, like Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson or Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry, these rookie running backs aren't super fantasy relevant till the end of their first years or the start of their second years. And this gives Amarian Hampton the chance to ease his way into the NFL as the second option in that running back room. And I think that's going to benefit him greatly. And he's going to pan out to just be, like I said, a league winner for you guys. So then we go here at pick 4. I think pick 4 is going to be T-Mac. This is another type of X-factor receiver. He landing in Carolina was the best possible place for him for fantasy. And that's because if he landed somewhere like Dallas, he'd be the second fiddle to CeeDee Lamb. But in Carolina, he has the potential to be that alpha wide receiver 1 for Bryce Young and that team. He's got that big frame like Mike Evans. And we know that the Panthers have been looking for a true alpha 1 receiver to pair with Leggett and Jalen Coker and guys like that. And I think T-Mac can definitely be that. And in my opinion, if you're picking in the first 4 picks of this year's draft, you have to come out with one of these guys, no matter your positional needs. I think these 4 guys definitely have the highest ceiling to be, or the lowest floor and highest ceiling, if that makes sense, to be league winners for people in Dynasty. So then we go on picks 5 and 6, and I think picks 5 and 6 can be interchangeable. I think both these guys have the highest potential to be league winners when you're picking here, and that's both Ohio State running backs in Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. So I personally lean Henderson, so I'm going to be putting Henderson at 5 here. The Patriots offense is just trending in the right direction right now. The Browns are figuring it out, but I think the Pats killed this draft, brought in some O-line help, brought in Drake May some weapons, and they're just, like I said, just building towards, I think, a brighter future faster than Cleveland right now. And I think Travion Henderson is going to be a beneficiary of that change. And then obviously nothing against Jukins. He's also a great player. And I think with Nick Chubb getting out of there soon and just them completely moving on from that Jerome Ford era, Quinshon Jukins has the potential to definitely be their RB1 and be a league winner for you guys. So both these Ohio State running backs at 5 and 6 make perfect sense and have, I think, offer the highest potential or highest ceiling. And again, running backs are hard to get in Dynasty, and you want to get these guys before we kind of dip into like lower tier running backs. And then at 7 over here, for me, I had Emeka Egbuka as my number one receiver coming into the draft, or my number two receiver coming into the draft. I guess now that Travis Hunter is officially a receiver, he'd be my number three receiver coming into this year's NFL draft. But I don't have him here. Who I have here, who I think has the higher ceiling as a league winner, is Matthew Golden. And that's simply for the reason that the Packers have kind of beat around the bush for years and not taken that true potential wide receiver one for their team. We've saw that with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen that with Jordan Love, but they finally addressed that in the first round through Matthew Golden, who was a beast at Texas. You got a Green Bay squad for fantasy purposes and real life. That's just a wide receiver room of like wide receiver two, wide receiver three kind of guys who have wide receiver 1 weeks every 2 to 3 weeks. And it's a rotating door, but I think Matthew Golden can provide some stability and he can be a true wide receiver one for years to come with a really young quarterback, a really young coach. And I think when I'm looking at league winners, I'm putting Matthew Golden over Egbuka for just the reason that he's the clear cut guy, right? He should be the clear cut guy for that offense if things pan out. And then next, another position like running back that's really hard to have some consistency at is tight end. And for tight end at pick eight, I'm sorry, for pick eight, I'm going tight end with Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren was my tight end one coming into this year's NFL draft. I know he was the second tight end taken, but he's going to a Colts team that needs a tight end. And this guy's numbers in college were ridiculous. He put up over 1,000 receiving yards, put up a bunch of touchdowns. He put up over 200 rushing yards. And overall, just a really versatile player who I think could be a potential top 5 to top 7 tight end in Dynasty for years to come. And you don't want to miss out on that when you're picking somewhere here like 8. And then next, again, I spoke about him 2 picks ago. This is going to be Emeka Egbuka. I loved him coming into the draft. I just, for fantasy reasons, I don't love where he landed in Tampa Bay, at least for like a year or two. And that's because Mike Evans is the guy there, but he's aging. He might be gone in a year or two. I'd expect him to be gone in 2 years tops. You got Chris Godwin, who's a phenomenal player. He just got that big extension, but he is really injury prone. So Egbuka could get his chance if one of them goes down or one of them, like Mike Evans, retires next year. You have Jalen McMillan, who was also really good last year. I don't think the offense just forgets about him. So Egbuka definitely has that league winning potential, but you might have to wait a year or two. It's not going to be this year, in my opinion. So again, I don't think he makes it out the top 10, and I think if he's here at 9, that's your guy, and he has the highest ceiling as a league winner. So now we go to 10. 10's a player I really love, and I think could be a home run league winner for teams picking at the end of the first rounds, and that's RJ Harvey. So I think a lot of people, including myself, coming into this year's NFL draft, expected the Broncos to go running back in the first round, and more specifically Amari and Hampton, but they ended up not doing that. They took RJ Harvey on day 2. This guy at UCF put up numbers as a receiving back and a pure running back. And I think if he went to a bigger school, we would have seen him go in the first round and higher in dynasty drafts than the end of the first round. But that Broncos O-line is really good, really young, and you're bringing in a dynamic playmaker like this that Sean Payton really, really wanted. It's got league winner written all over it. So I'm definitely taking him here. I honestly considered putting him higher on this list of guys we're going through, but I couldn't because I think the guys ahead of him definitely deserve to go ahead of him. But at 10, it's a no-brainer for me. If you're picking at the end of the first round and you need a running back, I would make this pick and not look back and be really happy about it. So next we go to pick 11, another running back, and that's going to be Caleb Johnson. So obviously Pittsburgh moved on from Najee Harris, and coming into the NFL draft, Jalen Warren was our number one option. I think Jalen Warren's a fine player, but I don't think he's a running back one. He's a really good running back you bring in for receiving set plays and certain rushing plays. But Caleb Johnson at Iowa was a really good running back. He was a day 2 prospect. They got him in the 3rd round, which was a really good spot to take him. And I think he could be that Najee Harris replacement and potentially take the reins as RB1 on that team by the end of the year. Again, it's hard to get those running backs, and I think after Caleb Johnson here, there's a big fall off for me for these running backs. I think these 6 guys in the first round are in a tier of their own. Obviously, Gentry's in a tier of his own. I think Amari Hampton is just a little bit higher than Travion and Judkins, but then RJ Harvey and Caleb Johnson are at the bottom of that upper echelon tier running backs. So you want to get your hands on him now before we move on to the rest of these picks. So then at 12, we go again, another position, hard to get guys, and that's going to be tight end, and that's going to be Colston Loveland here. Another great receiving tight end. He was the first tight end taken in this year's class. He's coming to a Ben Johnson offense here in Chicago, but it's a crowded room of receivers and tight ends. I think it might take him maybe another rookie tight ends usually don't ball out in their first year. We've just been really spoiled lately with Sam Laporta and Brock Bowers. I mean, we could see him have a good rookie year, but I think it'll take a year or two. But this is definitely, I think Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland are, again, like the running back tier argument I just had. They're in their own tier of tight ends. And then there's some good second round tight ends I really like in this year's draft, but these guys are both worthy of going in the first round, and I think he is a potential league winner here for you at the end of the first round. So next we go to the second round here, and I have a guy here who, if he pans out as a wide receiver 1 for this team, could definitely be a league winner, and that's Trey Harris. So you have a pretty thin Chargers wide receiver room. Obviously, you have you brought Mike Williams back in, but he's just a shell of what he used to be for the Chargers. And Trey Harris with man, I'm blanking right now. Lad McConkey, bro. Lad McConkey had a crazy good fantasy rookie year and a real life NFL rookie year. And I mean, right now he is the wide receiver 1 on the team, but it was no question that they needed another wide receiver for Justin Herbert. And you're taking Trey Harris here to be the wide receiver 2, in all honesty. But if he ends up being the top option for Justin Herbert, he's going to be a league winner for you, especially at the start of the second round. He's got a bigger frame than Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey's definitely the better route runner. His route running is crisp. But Trey Harris, coming from that same SEC pedigree, a lot of potential here for you. And then next we go to another SEC receiver, and that's Luther Burden. So Luther Burden, coming into this year's college football season, was a projected top 10 pick for this year's NFL draft, like early NFL mocks. Obviously, his season didn't pan out as great as people expected it, and Mizzou's offense just wasn't as good as people thought it'd be. But Luther Burden's got all the athletic upside and all the intangibles to be a really good NFL receiver. The issue here is that the Bears have a really crowded wide receiver room, kind of like what I was saying with Colston Loveland. So obviously you got DJ Moore, you got Rome Odunze, who they brought in last year. They got rid of Keenan Allen. He wasn't doing much for them. But they also got Colston Loveland, who's a receiving threat. I do think there's the potential for the Bears to explore trading DJ Moore next year just to get off that contract if Luther Burden and Rome Odunze make some progress and look like solid wide receiver 1s and 2s for that team. But here, when I'm looking at the rest of the board, there's no like clear cut wide receiver 1s for teams or running back 1s for teams. So I'm definitely going Luther Burden here because you're banking on that potential of what people expected him to be. So next we go to the number 1 pick of this year's NFL draft, and that's Cam Ward. So obviously it's harder for a quarterback to be a league winner when you compare them to running backs and wide receivers and even tight ends, but Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick. He hasn't been talked about much at all by the media because of just the Shador hype and all the other things that were going on. But he is the number 1 overall pick. And if he pans out to live up to that number 1 overall pick hype, he is going to be a league winner for you here in the second round. You're getting a quarterback for your dynasty squad who's going to be hopefully a top 12 QB1 for a decade at least. So there's the athletic upside. He has a really good, he's a good passer of the ball, and he could bring you points like something like CJ Stroud did 2 years ago as a rookie. So then next we move on. Speaking of CJ Stroud, one of his new toys, and that's Jaden Higgins. So they brought in both Iowa State receivers in this year's draft. Jaden Higgins was the one I had ranked over Noel, and that's because he has that 6'4" frame. Pairing him up with Nico Collins could be really interesting. And we know what CJ Stroud can do. We saw it his rookie year, a little bit of a slump last year, but they've been working on revamping this offense for him. And if Jaden Higgins pans out and he becomes Stroud's number two option, we could see some crazy numbers. And we saw what Tank Dell did as the number two option before the injuries. Yeah, we could see Jaden Higgins be a league winner for sure. And I would definitely roll the dice on him here at the top of the second. Um, Obviously, Nico Collins is not going to be overtaken as a wide receiver one. He's an absolute baller, but we've seen many offenses with really good quarterbacks in the NFL sustain two wide receiver ones in fantasy, and we could see that with Jaden Higgins. So a lot of this draft so far, it might have seemed like chalk to you, but I mean, it's gonna be like that because everyone knows who the first round guys should be, and then the borderline first round guys. But I promise you now, it's gonna get really interesting. So I'm going here at the fifth pick of the second round with Devin Neal. And why I'm taking him over a lot of people on this board is because this guy went really late, I know, in this year's draft in the sixth round, but he was a projected day two pick who has the numbers and the film to back up those projections from his last year at Kansas. Devin Neal is a really good running back, and I think the Saints got a steal in the sixth round. So obviously Alvin Kamara is still the running back one on that team, and he still is a baller, but he is getting up there in age. We could see some more injuries. He just got that extension, so he's not going anywhere. But as he's slow, running backs tend to slow down once they hit that 29-year-old mark, and as we slowly see him kind of go on that downward hill, we're going to see, I think, Devin Neal take his place, and Devin Neal has the potential to get a shot at that RB1 position for this team in the next 2 years. And if that happens and he pans out and the Saints get better, that's a league winner in the second round. You got an RB1 for years to come. And then next we move on to, and I should say, some people might come at me in the comments like, should be Cam Scatabo, but Cam Scatabo was not even, I didn't think he was a second round running back coming into this year's draft. I did think Devin Neal was. I borderline had Cam Scatabo as a third round running back. There's a lot of hype. He's a really good college football player. Don't get me wrong. He had a really good college football career. I'm not questioning his work ethic. I'm not questioning his toughness, but I don't see him panning out being as good as of an NFL running back as some of these other guys. So that's why I don't have him here, and he's going to drop a little bit for me. But before I get people, Cam Scatabo truthers in the comments coming at my head, I got to give you my reasoning. So again, this is that Jaden Higgins argument about the Texans. You're banking on finding CJ Stroud's second wide receiver who can put up wide receiver one numbers, and that's why we're going with Jalen Noel. So again, guys, I'm not telling you this is how your draft should go. This isn't a mock draft. I'm just telling you who I think has the highest upside to be a league winner for you at every single spot in this draft. We're gonna go through 3 rounds, and this is who I think is going to be the high ceiling here. Again, we're banking on CJ Stroud, RB or wide receiver two, hoping we can get a real life wide receiver two that puts a wide receiver one numbers in fantasy. And I do have Jalen Noel under Higgins in my board in my rankings, but I can be wrong. I've been wrong many times. I've been right many times, but if he ends up being that second guy, you got a league winner here. So then next we go to another receiver, and that's going to be Jack Beck. I was not super familiar with him. I'm not going to lie, coming into this year's draft, but I've been studying up on him since. He had a really good last year in college, and this Raiders receiving room is just really weak. Obviously, I mean, Brock Bowers is their leading receiver at the tight end position, and Geno was able to get the ball to guys like JSN and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf in Seattle. Pete Carroll is going to throw the ball and run the ball. Like, they're going to do both. And I think if Jack Beck can just be the clear-cut wide receiver one in this room, he's going to be good for fantasy. And for that reason, we're banking on him here at 207 and potential league winner for just the lack of competition right now. And he was a second-round pick at the end of the day, so the Raiders do like him. And he's bringing in some of that day two pedigree here. And then next, all right, so I told you guys Cam Scatabo would fall, but not a lot. I'm still going to put him here at the end of seconds. I mean, again, I'm not shitting on Cam Scatterbo whatsoever. I think he was a great college football player who displayed really good work ethic and some really good running back qualities. I just don't think he has that home run speed or home run capability. But still, when I'm looking at the guys on the board, he's got the highest ceiling here. If he proves me wrong and translates his college game translates to the NFL, he's going to be a league winner here for you at 208. So I got him here at 208, and I think that's a fine place for him to go in real drafts as well. Although I think we will see him go earlier due to the hype behind the name. Okay, and then next we're gonna go another running back, and this is another guy who was a projected day two pick, and I could be wrong here, but I think he went in the fourth round or the fifth round to the Browns, and that's Dylan Sampson. So obviously, Judkins was brought in to be that RB1, but the thing is, when you're these both these guys are college players coming to the NFL, and we can't sit here with certainty and be like, this guy's gonna be better than him in the NFL. We don't know. We really don't know. I hope they both pan out. I hope they both have really fruitful careers. But for all we know, Judkins could be a bust. And what if Dylan Sampson ends up being the best running back for this team at this draft and is RB1? So these two guys, I think, will end up being the RB1 and 2 tandem for this team by the end of the year. The question is, who's going to be the better player? Dylan Sampson is a good player coming from SEC pedigree as well. So I'm really willing to take the risk on him here, even as the RB2, because again, we don't know coming to the NFL who's going to have the better career, and you never know. Again, if Dylan Sampson pans out to be the RB1 for the Browns, you got a league winner here at the second round instead of the top or the middle of the first round. So now we go to the tight end position, and I'm going to take a guy over some of these other higher ranked guys, and that's going to be Harold Fannin. So again, I'm not telling you he's the better tight end than the rest of these guys here on the board, but when we're looking at it from a potential league winner who has the highest ceiling, I'm going Harold Fannin because he put up insane video game numbers as a tight end in college on the receiving end of things. And you have David Njoku, who's still a tight end one on this team, but I suspect they're going to move on from him in the next 2 to 3 years tops. And David Njoku is a phenomenal receiving tight end. I think Harold Finn is going to learn a lot from him and be that heir to the throne at the tight end position for the Browns. So for that reason, banking on that receiving upside and what his future could hold in store for him, I have him here as a potential league winner for here at 210. And now we have a guy who's going to be a pretty controversial pick over some of the other guys left on the board, and that's Alec Iomanor out of Stanford. Absolute speedster with crazy speed. I know he wasn't even the first wide receiver taken by the Titans in this year's draft. It was Dykes out of Florida. But out of the 3 receivers, including Xavier Restrepo that they brought in this year to their wide receiver room, like all the rookies, I think Alec Iomanor has the highest upside. So in 2023, he had a game against the number 2 pick in this draft right here, Travis Hunter, where he dropped 294, at least over 290 yards and 3 touchdowns. Travis Hunter was lined up on him the entire game for the most part, and he absolutely cooked him. So I'm not basing this just based on that, but this guy is a better receiver than I think people realize. I thought, was for sure going to go in the second round to the Texans or someone who needed another receiver. He ended up falling a bit, but I think he has the highest potential from that Tennessee rookie room that could be Cam Ward's wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 or just his favorite option when it comes down to winning the game. So I'm very, very willing to take the gamble on him here to be a league winner for you and just be a fantasy demon. And then next we move on to the last pick of the second round on this board, and we're gonna go tight end again. And I'm gonna take Mason Taylor here, who was taken by the Jets on day 2. He got the LSU. He wasn't the number 1 option at LSU and still put up really solid receiving numbers. He's got that receiving capability or receiving tight end capability for real life, which will translate to fantasy. And again, I just like him over a lot of the guys on the board when we're talking about high ceiling league winners, because if you have that advantage at the tight end position in fantasy, you have an advantage over your opponents on a weekly basis and are more likely to win your games and win your leagues and in turn win your leagues. So for that reason, I think Mason Taylor is a fine pick here. And then we go on to round 3 of this league winner board, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to go with a guy who has some upside because of where he landed. First of all, I think this was a steal for this team. He fell further in the NFL draft I expected him to. I think a lot of people expected him to. And he fell somewhere where he has everything he needs to succeed. He just got to pan out. And that's Jalen Royals. Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes has a new weapon and a potentially very dangerous weapon. You obviously have Rashee Rice, who looked like the receiver one for the team before the injury. We don't know. I think he might be back for week one, but injuries like that, it could take some time to get back to full force. Xavier Worthy looked really good. In the Super Bowl, he looked like that team's receiver one, but he got some legal troubles now, and never know, man. But you bring in Jalen Royals, who has the potential to be a contributing receiver on this team. And you're in the third round now, so I can't tell you with certainty like this guy's gonna be a game changer. But when I'm looking at the board here, I'm banking on Jalen Royals' really good college career and the fact that he has Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball and a really creative offense that wins games. So I think this is a great spot to take a chance on him here as a league winner for sure. And then next we got Baishal Tootin at Jags. So this is a really crowded Jacksonville running back room now. You got Travis Etienne, obviously, and then you have I mean, this is you just got Tank Bigsby, bro. I've been blanking all day today, but Tank Bigsby who took that RB1 slot from Etienne, who's dealing with injuries all year. And we know Travis Etienne was the top 10 running back, top 5 running back in PPR in fantasy leagues 2 years ago. But Tootin had a really good college career coming out of VT, and I think he could definitely, if ETN continues to fall off or they decide to trade him, they're just not feeling that fit anymore with his team. And I think he has the potential to be better than Bigsby off the back. I think he's a more versatile running back, and just you're bringing kind of what we talked about with Travis Hunter. Liam Cohen's coming in now. He was able to sustain 2 running backs in Tampa. He was able to sustain 2 receivers, and I don't see any reason where if Tootin becomes the running back 2 to this team, he could be fantasy relevant, eventually overtake that RB1 position for Jacksonville, who's on the way up hopefully and could be a league winner for you here in third rounds. So now we're going to focus on another running back in Florida, and that's Ollie Gordon. So Ollie Gordon's last year at Oklahoma State wasn't as good as his year 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he had 2,000 all-purpose yards with rushing and receiving, and he had 21 rushing touchdowns. So obviously, Achan's the RB1 here, but they got rid of Raheem Mostert, and I think Ollie Gordon could definitely be the RB2 for this team in his first year. Give it 6 to 8 weeks. And Achan, all it takes is one injury for Ollie Gordon to be that RB1 for, I mean, however many games. And that is the formula for a league winner. When you bring in a guy this dangerous to what should be a more improved, potent offense, where we've seen running backs have a lot of success in fantasy, this is a good guy to take in the third round here as a potential league winner. And again, we're in the third round, so at this stage, it's a lot of what ifs, like if this happens, if other guys on the team don't pan out, if guys get hurt. But that's kind of what you're banking on in the third round. Or you're banking on some of these guys to just impress and overtake those top spots for their teams in the next 2 to 3 years. These guys aren't like off the bat surefire league winners. And then next we go on to another running back, and that's going to be Jaden Blue. So I'm taking these running backs over some of the players left on the board because I think as a running back, you're going to see a lot of injuries. These guys are on good teams or should be better offenses, and you just have the potential of them making noise and being really fantasy relevant and helping your team make it to your championships and win them. And that right here is going to be Jaden Blue. So obviously he's not the RB1 here in Dallas, but Javonte Williams' knees are kind of cooked. Credit to him, his knees were healthy last year, but the years before that, or 2 years before that, things weren't looking good. And all it takes is one bad day, which I don't hope happens. And Jaden Blue is a really dynamic running back in college, and he could be. I think we're gonna see him either way if Javonte's on the field or not as a receiving back in certain sets. But if Javonte goes down, we could see him get a shot at the RB1 slot for Dallas. And we've seen Dallas produce some really good running back talent throughout our lifetimes almost. So Jaden Blue here, I think worth the gamble for sure. Could be a league winner for you in 2 or 3 years. Again, Javonte Williams' deal is only a 1 year deal, so that's not a long term thing they locked down there. So next we go Seattle's new tight end Elijah Arroyo. He had a really good receiving year, comparable to Mason Taylor. He had more touchdowns, about the same amount of yards, but he had way more yards per reception. But I think a lot of that has to do with Cam Ward throwing in the ball. Obviously, Cam Ward, number one overall pick, balled out, so that means his offense is going to ball out. But I think he's definitely going to be taken in second rounds of drafts. This is again not mock. This is not a mock draft. This is just the highest ceiling. And at this stage in the draft, I definitely think he has the highest ceiling to be a league winner. Again, through that tight end position, where if you have an advantage every week, you're gonna have a better chance to win your league. And then next we move on to Jalen Milrow. So Jalen Milrow is going to be behind Sam Darnold, which is, I think, really good for him. We've seen the lows of Sam Darnold, and then we've seen the highs last year in Minnesota. Which Sam Darnold are we going to get in Seattle? We could see Sam Darnold ball out again, be a almost a borderline MVP candidate, or we could see him go back to his old form by the end of the year, and then the Seahawks kind of know they need to figure something out at quarterback. If Jalen Milrow if Jalen Milrow impresses this team, he might get a chance at that QB1 spot for the Seattle Seahawks team. If not this year, then maybe next year. And for fantasy, this matters because he has that athletic rushing upside, and he's bringing in just that Bama quarterback pedigree where I'd be comfortable taking him in third rounds of drafts. And I think you will see him being taken in third rounds of drafts as a potential young quarterback that pans out for teams. And again, he's got more of a fantasy upside than guys like Jackson Dart or even Shaw. So for that reason, I think he's a potential league winner for you here through the quarterback position. Now we go to a guy with a lot of what ifs, and that's Jordan James, man. 49ers. Jordan James was a pretty good running back at Oregon. He's the RB3 currently on this depth chart behind Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerrero. We know the issues with CMC. I hope he doesn't stay. I hope he doesn't get injured because it's an absolute joy to watch him play football. And he's such a fantasy beast. Isaac Guerrero, I'm really high on coming into this year for Dynasty. If you can get him for a third round pick or something, because again, we know the deal with CMC. You dive into advanced analytics from when Guerrero got the chance to be the RB1 for that team, and he put up numbers at the end of his rookie year. But if CMC gets hurt, Isaac Guerrero gets hurt. Or if Jordan James is better than Isaac Guerrero in training camp and impresses his team more, he could get his chance. And we saw what Jordan Mason did last year when he got his chance. The Niners produce fantasy relevant running backs who could help you win your leagues or at least win weeks when guys are out. So for that reason alone, I think Jordan James just has the higher ceiling than a lot of these guys on this list, because if guys go down, he gets that spot and he balls out. He's going to put up those 15 to 25 point games. And you never know if CMC gets hurt again, and it might be it for him in San Francisco. And if Jordan James balls out, he's the new RB1 in San Fran. So next we move on to a guy who I was not high on coming in this draft. I still am not super high on him, but I think he deserves to be given a shot here at 308 because of the team that took him on day 2. And that's Isaac Tesla, if I can find him on this board. I don't know why the Lions took him in the third round, but he's got that big body frame. He doesn't have those numbers to back up his draft position in this year's draft in the NFL draft. But if the Lions, who have turned into a pretty competent organization over these last few years, if they took him on day 2, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't take the risk on him here at the end of third rounds as a potential league winner. You have J-Mo, who was their wide receiver 2, who's going to be on the way out, in my opinion, soon here. I think he's going to get a really big contract from someone other than Detroit. Obviously, Amon-Ra's not being overtaken as the wide receiver 1. But if Isaac Tesla can start getting those wide receiver, being the second option for Jared Goff and his team, and we see J-Mo dip, I mean, in a year or two, you might see Isaac Tesla be a fantasy league winner here in the third round. And a lot of us who question that pick for the Lions in this year's draft are going to look like clowns. So I'm going to bank on him here. And then next we go on to, again, another player I'm not high on. And it's not as much of a knock on this player in Terrence Ferguson. It's more of a knock on the team that took him. The Rams don't use their tight ends like that. We've seen it over the last few years, at least, and they're not super fantasy relevant. Tyler Higbee did have his moments, but last year the Rams didn't use that tight end position like that. And Ferguson, man, does not. He's really unpolished when it comes to blocking. And if he wants to see the field more and get his receiving targets and touchdown, like red zone targets and all that, which we need for fantasy, he's going to have to improve that blocking. And if we don't see that, he's kind of cooked. But he was still, nonetheless, taken in the second round by the Rams. And this is a Sean McVay offense. They took him high for a reason. They probably loved his, like, I mean, they had to have loved his film and just liked him as a guy. So if he pans out for Sean McVay in this offense and they actually utilize him at the tight end position, I mean, here at the end of the third round of a dynasty league, dynasty draft, he could be a league winner for you. Again, at a really thin position in fantasy. So next we go to another running back who I think is banking on injuries, and that's DJ Giddens. So you have JT. JT's clear cut RB1 on the Colts. But if we see him go down, we could see Giddens get his chance at that RB1 slot for the Colts this year. Again, these are a lot of what if kind of guys, and with who I'm seeing on the board here, I'm comfortable taking Giddens here at 310. Um, it's a team that's shown a lot of success in the run game and should be trending in the right direction, fixing up that O line, and we'll see what happens with the AR this year. But not a bad place to take a risk on a guy like this at the end of third rounds, where at this point it's kind of a crapshoot with a lot of guys, but I think he has the highest ceiling out of who's available here. And then we go another running back, and that's Trevor Etienne. Trevor Etienne is kind of buried on the depth chart right now behind Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. I don't see him getting many snaps over either of these guys if everyone's healthy. Um, it just, I mean, they're both those guys put up RB1 numbers last year in real life and fantasy, and they're deserving of the two running back tandem. But with that being said, Dave Canales has said time and time again he wants to take a two running back approach. The Panthers drafted Jonathan Brooks last year in the second round. He's out for the year with that unfortunate ACL injury. So if we do see either Rico or Chuba go down, we could see ETN get his share of snaps. And ETN was a pretty good running back at Georgia. He put up some good receiving numbers, some good rushing numbers. And here at the end of the third round, I mean, I think the ceiling is definitely there for him. And again, Rico Dowdle's on a 1-year deal. If they're over Rico Dowdle next year, Jonathan Brooks can't be the guy they drafted him to be, and Trevor Etienne impresses. He could be a valuable fantasy asset on a team that wants to adopt a two running back approach to their weekly play. And then last pick, I'm going to have to go with the talk of the town in this year's draft. And that's Shador Sanders, man. I know he wasn't even the first quarterback taken for this Browns team in this year's draft, but he still has some solid things about him. Like, we saw him ball out at Colorado, and at the end of the third, like, when I'm looking at the board and I'm thinking of guys who could win your league, I mean, you could take Jackson Dart here too, but personally, I still like Shador's film over Dart's. I think he's more of a dynamic player. Now he's got a chip on his shoulder. The question is his character and his humility. And I mean, I think he's definitely I think he's a better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. I did not like that Dylan Gabriel pick. And just imagine if Shador pans out, like all the clips and just the whole lore behind Shador and draft night or draft weekend and everything. But yeah, with that being said, I think this is what I look at as the highest potential guys at each position in this year's draft who have that ceiling to be a league winner. Let me know who you think I'm too high on, too low on. Who are your sleepers in this year's draft? And I know a lot of you are doing your rookie drafts here in May and the upcoming weeks. So good luck with those. And yeah, guys, I'll catch you in the next video.